The grand amphitheater of the Galactic Scientific Academy buzzed with anticipation. Thousands of the galaxy's most renowned xenobiologists, each representing different species and star systems, had gathered for the 847th Annual Interstellar Wildlife Conference. The massive dome-shaped chamber, with its sweeping architecture and hovering observation platforms, was packed to capacity. I, Professor Nixus Blackstar, stood backstage, my four hands fidgeting with my presentation cards. My antennae twitched nervously as I overheard snippets of conversation from the audience. My research about Earth's ecosystems was about to turn their understanding of predator-prey relationships upside down. "Have you heard about Professor Blackstar's latest findings?" a voice chirped from the crowd. That would be Dr. Lumina Starweaver, my longtime rival from the Centauri Institute. Probably another boring paper about Earth's grass-eating creatures. I suppressed a laugh. If only they knew. Professor Zenith Moonshadow, the conference organizer, floated toward me on their gravity disk. Their bioluminescent spots pulsed with concern. "Professor Blackstar, are you certain you want to proceed with this presentation? The implications could be disturbing for some of our more sensitive colleagues." "My dear Zenith," I replied, straightening my ceremonial science robes, "the truth must be shared, no matter how unsettling. Our understanding of Earth has been embarrassingly incomplete." The main lights dimmed, and the announcement system hummed to life. Presenting next, Professor Nixus Blackstar, lead researcher of the Earth Observation Initiative, with their presentation titled "The Apex Predator We Never Saw Coming." As I glided onto the stage, I noticed Dr. Aurora Nebulae in the front row, her crystalline form refracting light in excitement. She had always been supportive of my unconventional research methods. Next to her sat Professor Quantum Stardust, looking as skeptical as ever, his tentacles crossed in what I assumed was disapproval. The massive holoscreen behind me flickered to life, displaying the Earth in all its blue and green glory. Such an unassuming planet, yet home to the most terrifying hunters we had ever encountered. Distinguished colleagues. I began, my voice steady despite my racing hearts. For the past 50 cycles, we have studied Earth's ecosystems with our advanced technology, categorizing its creatures into neat, predictable categories. We believed we understood the planet's predator-prey relationships. I paused for effect, my antennae now perfectly still. We were wrong. Catastrophically, hilariously wrong. The crowd murmured. Someone dropped their datapad with a clatter. This was going to be fun. The holoscreen shifted to display our first landing site, a location the natives called Central Park in their New York City. A perfectly reasonable place to begin our research, we thought. A controlled environment with clear boundaries and multiple species interactions. Oh, how naive we were. Our first contact with Earth's ecosystem, I continued, pulling up footage from our initial survey, came in the form of these creatures. The screen showed a small, gray-furred organism with a bushy tail scampering across a green patch. Several audience members cooed. Professor Quantum Stardust actually leaned forward, his tentacles uncrossing slightly. We classified these squirrels as typical prey animals. Small, quick, constantly alert textbook example of a species evolved to escape predation. I clicked to the next slide. We spent 3 weeks studying their behavior patterns, convinced we had found the perfect baseline for Earth's prey species. The footage showed our research team setting up observation posts in the artificial canopy. There was senior researcher Luna Starbright, meticulously documenting every squirrel movement. Behind her, technical officer Nova Flash calibrated our bioscanners, while security chief Phoenix Blazer performed standard threat assessments. Then I said, my antennae twitching in remembered amusement, this happened. The holoscreen showed a squirrel approaching our base camp. It stood on its hind legs, whiskers twitching, and proceeded to chew through our million-credit data cables. Laughter rippled through the audience. Dr. Lumina Starweaver's smug expression faltered slightly. But that was just the beginning, I continued. We quickly learned that these harmless prey animals had not only adapted to survive predation, but had developed psychological warfare tactics. They would deliberately approach larger creatures, steal their food, and perform acrobatic escapes that our best military strategists still can't fully explain. The next series of clips showed squirrels outsmarting various predators we had identified. Dogs straining at leashes, cats being led on merry chases, and birds abandoning their meals to these supposedly inferior creatures. Our initial classification system began to break down, I explained, switching to our early data charts. We had assumed, based on universal constants observed across 17 galaxies, that size and physical capabilities would determine a species' place in the food chain. Earth laughed at our assumptions. The screen displayed our next research site, a peaceful-looking meadow. We decided to study larger herbivores, hoping to establish a clearer pattern. Here we encountered these creatures. The image showed a group of deer grazing peacefully. "Ah, yes," I heard Professor Quantum Stardust mutter. "Now we're getting somewhere logical." I struggled to keep my mandibles from clicking in premature amusement. The white-tailed deer appeared to be a perfect example of a prey species. Herbivorous, social, equipped with excellent sensory capabilities for predator detection. We were relieved to finally find something that fit our models. Security Chief Phoenix Blazer appeared on screen, approaching a deer with a standard bioscanner. The deer looked up, ears forward, seeming curious rather than afraid. What happened next revolutionized our understanding of Earth's wildlife behavioral patterns. The footage showed the deer suddenly charging forward, rising on its hind legs, and striking out with its forehooves. Phoenix's protective field activated just in time, but the scanner wasn't so lucky. Gasps echoed through the amphitheater. Someone in the back actually fell off their hover seat. Yes, colleagues, the supposedly docile herbivore attacked, not in self-defense, not in panic, but with what our behavioral experts identified as, I paused for effect, annoyance. The next hour of my presentation detailed our increasingly bizarre encounters with Earth's wildlife. The waterfowl that turned our advanced aquatic research vessel into their personal rest stop. The raccoons that repeatedly broke into our secure compound, not for food, but apparently for entertainment. The deer that would gather at night to stare at our camp, standing perfectly still for hours, causing several junior researchers to request transfers. But the most disturbing pattern, I said, pulling up our long-term observation data, emerged when we began studying the actual predator species. The screen showed various Earth carnivores: wolves, bears, lions, tigers. These apex predators, which by all logical metrics should have been dominating their ecosystems through force, instead showed remarkable restraint. They avoided unnecessary confrontation, respected territorial boundaries, and most shockingly, displayed clear conservation behaviors. Dr. Aurora Nebulae's crystalline form sparkled with excitement. She had always theorized that advanced predator species would evolve towards ecological balance rather than pure dominance. But even she couldn't have predicted what we discovered next. After 6 months of study, our team was frustrated. Earth's predator-prey relationships defied every known biological model. Prey species acted like predators. Predators showed restraint that bordered on philosophy. And every attempt to classify the planet's food chain led to more questions than answers. I brought up our compound security footage from what we now called the Revelation Night. The timestamp showed 3:47 a.m. Earth time. The camera panned across our research team, all awake, all gathered around the holographic mapping table. We had decided to work through the night, determined to make sense of our data. That's when senior researcher Luna Starbright noticed something odd about our long-term population tracking algorithms. The screen zoomed in on Luna's shocked expression as she triple-checked her findings. Every single species we had been studying, from the smallest prey to the largest predator, showed signs of population control. Not natural population cycles, but deliberate, calculated management. Something was controlling Earth's entire ecosystem, something we hadn't identified yet. The audience was completely silent now. Even the ever-skeptical Professor Quantum Stardust had uncrossed all his tentacles, a sign of full attention in his species. As we reviewed our data with this new perspective, we noticed strange patterns in animal behavior. Predators that changed their hunting grounds on seemingly arbitrary schedules. Prey species that relocated entire populations based on no discernible environmental factors. And most bizarrely, regular periods where certain areas would become completely devoid of all large wildlife, only to be repopulated days or weeks later. I took a deep breath, my antennae quivering with the memory of our discovery. That's when we finally noticed them. The true apex predators of Earth. The species that had been hiding in plain sight, so integrated into the ecosystem that our initial scans had classified them as background noise. The holoscreen prepared to show our first clear footage of humanity, and I could feel the tension in the amphitheater reach its peak. Dr. Lumina Starweaver's smug expression had been replaced by one of intense curiosity, and Professor Zenith Moonshadow's gravity disk was actually wobbling with anticipation. But before I show you this footage, I said, my mandibles clicking in what my species recognizes as a grin, I should warn you what you're about to see will challenge everything you think you know about predator-prey relationships, and more importantly, it will make our previous classification of potentially dangerous species look like a child's coloring book. The holoscreen flickered to life with our first documented human hunting party. The footage showed 3 humans walking across a savanna, carrying what we initially mistook for primitive tools. These, I said, pointing to the bipedal creatures, are humans. And those simple sticks they're carrying? Those are weapons capable of launching projectiles at speeds that would make our military engineers weep with envy. A nervous chuckle rippled through the audience. Professor Quantum Stardust's tentacles began to curl defensively. But their weapons aren't what make humans the most terrifying predators we've ever encountered. No, what makes them unique is their hunting method. I played the footage in real time. Watch closely. The video showed the humans following tracks in the dirt, moving at what seemed like an absurdly casual pace. Hours compressed into minutes as they continued their pursuit under the blazing sun. Notice how they're not running. Not rushing? That's because they don't need to. My antennae twitched with excitement. Humans are persistence hunters. They don't rely on speed or strength. They simply never stop. The footage continued, showing the humans tracking their prey, an antelope that could easily outrun them. The animal would sprint away, rest, then sprint again when the humans caught up. Their prey is faster, stronger, more agile. But humans have 3 evolutionary advantages that make them unstoppable: efficient cooling through sweat, endurance beyond anything we've documented in the galaxy, and most terrifyingly, pattern recognition abilities that border on precognition. Security Chief Phoenix Blazer appeared on screen, reading from her first field report. The humans tracked the antelope for 6 hours. They knew exactly where it would go, predicting its movements with disturbing accuracy. They weren't following tracks anymore, they were following a story they could somehow read in broken twigs and disturbed pebbles. The footage showed the final moments of the hunt. The antelope, exhausted and overheated, finally unable to run anymore. The humans, barely winded, approaching their prey with what our emotional analysis algorithms identified as respect. But this was just the beginning of our discoveries, I continued, switching to our historical research findings. Humans haven't simply evolved as predators, they've turned hunting into an art form that spans their entire history. The screen displayed a rapid sequence of human hunting methods across different environments. They hunt in water, despite being land animals. They hunt in Arctic conditions, despite having no fur. They hunt in deserts, mountains, forests, adapting their methods to any environment with terrifying efficiency. Dr. Luna Starbright's research notes appeared next. Perhaps most incredibly, humans have developed hundreds of different hunting strategies. They can trap prey using nothing but gravity and sticks. They can hide in plain sight using pieces of plants. They can even mimic the calls of other species to lure prey or confuse predators. But here's where it gets truly bizarre, I said, pulling up our comparative analysis. Humans don't hunt just for food. They hunt for research, for population control, for sport, and sometimes just to prove they can. They've turned predation into a recreational activity. The audience shifted uncomfortably. Dr. Aurora Nebulae's crystalline form had taken on a distinctly pale hue. And yet, I continued, this is still not the most surprising thing we discovered about humans. Technical Officer Nova Flash, please share your findings about human conservation efforts. The screen showed Nova's bewildered face as she reported humans actively protect and manage the populations of both predator and prey species. They create preservation areas, establish hunting seasons, and maintain detailed population statistics. They are simultaneously the planet's most efficient predators and its most dedicated conservationists. Let me be clear, I said. my voice growing serious. Humans can hunt any species on their planet, any of them, but they choose not to. They've developed something unprecedented in our studies of predator species hunting ethics. The next series of clips showed humans releasing captured animals that didn't meet their size requirements, treating injured wildlife, and rehabilitating endangered species. But the true horror or beauty, depending on your perspective of human hunting capabilities, became clear when we discovered their historical records. I brought up ancient cave paintings, showing humans hunting creatures that dwarfed them in size. These aren't exaggerated tales. Humans actually hunted megafauna during their planet's ice age, creatures that would make our modern military vehicles look small. They hunted them with sharpened sticks and rocks, and they succeeded. Professor Quantum Stardust had gone completely pale, all his tentacles wrapped tightly around his torso. Dr. Lumina Starweaver was frantically taking notes, her earlier skepticism completely forgotten. As our research continued, we discovered something even more unsettling. Humans don't just hunt as individuals or small groups. They can coordinate massive hunting operations involving hundreds of individuals, using tactics that rival military campaigns. The screen showed historical reenactments of ancient human hunting techniques, groups coordinating to drive prey off cliffs, setting controlled fires to direct herd movements, using the environment itself as a weapon. But perhaps the most terrifying aspect of human hunting capabilities is this. I paused, making eye contact with several audience members. They can learn and adopt the hunting techniques of other predators. We found documentation of humans using wolf pack tactics, big cat ambush strategies, and even aquatic hunting methods borrowed from marine predators. The final piece of footage showed a human approaching one of our hidden observation posts. The human looked directly at the camouflaged camera, smiled, and waved. Then they pulled out a communication device and called their wildlife management service to report an unauthorized observation station in a protected area. That's right, colleagues. They knew we were there, the entire time. They had been observing us observing them, and they chose to respond not with aggression, but by filing the appropriate paperwork. The amphitheater had gone completely silent. Even the ambient hum of the ventilation systems seemed muted. To summarize our findings, I said, bringing up our final data analysis, humans are persistent predators with infinite adaptability, pattern recognition that borders on telepathy, and the ability to learn and improve upon any hunting technique they observe. They can hunt in any environment, coordinate in numbers that should be logistically impossible, and have turned predation into both an art form and a science. I clicked to the final slide, showing a human family having a picnic in the park where we'd started our research. And the most terrifying part? This is what they look like when they're relaxing. These apex predators, these unstoppable hunters, these beings that can outthink, outlast, and outadapt any species we've ever encountered, spend most of their time watching entertainment shows and arguing about food recipes on their global communication network. The silence in the amphitheater was absolute. Then, from somewhere in the back, a voice squeaked, "What do we do with this information?" I felt my mandibles click in what humans would recognize as a smile. That, my dear colleagues, brings us to the most interesting part of my presentation. Because while we were studying humans as predators, they were conducting their own research. And wait until you hear what they think about us. The holoscreen shifted to display a human research facility, specifically their xenobiology department. While we were hiding in bushes with our advanced cloaking technology, humans were publishing peer-reviewed papers about us in their scientific journals. A collective gasp echoed through the amphitheater. Professor Quantum Stardust's tentacles uncoiled so rapidly that he accidentally slapped his neighbor. "Oh yes," I continued, barely containing my amusement. "They've been studying us studying them, and their conclusions are... Well, let me share some excerpts from their research papers." The screen displayed a human scientific journal article. According to Dr. Rebecca Winters of the Global Xenobiology Institute, and I quote, "The alien researchers display remarkably predictable behavior patterns, suggesting a hierarchical social structure similar to many Earth primates. Their attempts at concealment would be admirable if they hadn't chosen to hide their base behind an active ice cream truck." Nervous laughter rippled through the audience. Dr. Lumina Starweaver had turned a fascinating shade of purple. But it gets better, I said, clicking to the next slide. Dr. James Marshall's paper titled Observing the Observers: A Study in Interstellar Anthropology suggests that our research methods are, and again I quote, charmingly reminiscent of early human wildlife photographers, complete with comically oversized equipment and a touching belief in the effectiveness of their camouflage. Senior researcher Luna Starbright appeared on screen, reading from her final report. The humans have established a citizen science project called Spot the Space Zoologist. They have a point system. Our security chief, Phoenix Blazer, is apparently worth 50 points due to her, quote, consistently entertaining attempts to blend in at human social gatherings while wearing a tree costume. Phoenix's indignant squawk from the back of the amphitheater only added to the growing chaos. Professor Blackstar Professor Zenith Moonshadow's gravity disk was spinning erratically. Are you suggesting that our entire xenobiology research protocol has been compromised? Compromised, I laughed. My dear Zenith, it's far worse than that. The humans have been actively helping us get better data. The next slide showed a group of humans deliberately setting up perfect observation opportunities, complete with helpful signs reading good angle for alien cameras here, and please don't feed the xenobiologists. They've been treating us like what they call wildlife photographers in training. They even created a guidebook I displayed the cover of, So You're Being Studied by Alien Scientists, a human's guide to encouraging good research practices. Dr. Aurora Nebulae's crystalline form was vibrating with what could either be horror or hysteria. But our stealth technology, our advanced sensors. Ah yes, about that I clicked to the next slide. The humans have a delightful term called cryptozoology, the study of hidden animals. They're quite experienced with researchers trying to document elusive species. They found our observation techniques, and I quote from their research, adorably similar to Bigfoot hunters, but with better funding. The amphitheater erupted into chaos. Professor Quantum Stardust had completely wrapped himself in his tentacles. Dr. Lumina Starweaver was frantically reviewing her own past research papers with newfound horror. Someone in the upper tiers had started stress molting. But colleagues, I raised my voice over the pandemonium, you haven't heard the most shocking part yet. The humans want to collaborate. The chaos stopped so abruptly that several hovering audience members dropped a few meters before catching themselves. Yes, you heard correctly. The humans have prepared a formal proposal for joint research projects. They've even offered to help us improve our observation techniques. Though they do request that we, and I quote, stop hiding in the same 3 types of bushes, it's getting embarrassing. Technical Officer Nova Flash's report appeared on screen. The humans have offered to share their centuries of wildlife research experience with us. They seem particularly excited about teaching us something called proper camouflage and basic fieldcraft. They've also politely requested that we stop using bright purple stealth suits, as apparently Earth has no naturally purple vegetation. The audience watched in stunned silence as I displayed the humans' proposed collaboration framework. Their methodology was impressive, their insights remarkable, and their sense of humor. Well, that was still taking some getting used to. The implications for interstellar relations are profound, I continued. We've discovered a species that not only excels at predation, but has evolved beyond it to become master ecosystem managers. They can hunt anything, yet they choose conservation. They can destroy, yet they prefer preservation. And most importantly, they've been watching us fail at watching them with what their reports describe as infinite patience and great entertainment value. Professor Zenith Moonshadow had finally stabilized their gravity disk. But what about our academic reputation? Our research protocols? Our dignity? Oh, that's long gone, I replied cheerfully. The humans have already published several hundred memes about our research team on their global network. Apparently, Security Chief Phoenix's tree costume has gone viral. Phoenix's second indignant squawk was drowned out by a wave of nervous laughter. However, I said, bringing up the final slides, the humans have made it clear that they consider our attempts to study them endearing and a sign of intellectual curiosity that deserves encouragement. They've even offered to host a joint xenobiology conference next year, though they do request that we, and I quote, please bring the tree costume. It's become a beloved icon. Dr. Aurora Nebulae had finally stopped vibrating, and was now emitting a high-pitched sound that might have been either laughter or a cry for help. Professor Quantum Stardust had unwrapped enough tentacles to take notes, though his color hadn't quite returned to normal. To conclude this portion of my presentation, I said, I would like to share one final quote from the human researchers. Dr. Sarah Martinez writes, while the alien scientists' methods may seem primitive by our standards, their dedication to understanding Earth's ecosystems is commendable. We look forward to teaching them proper wildlife observation techniques, just as soon as they realize we can see them hiding behind the hot dog stand. The ambient lighting in the amphitheater flickered as the building's emotions sensing system struggled to process the mixed waves of horror, humor, and hysteria emanating from the audience. Dr. Lumina Starweaver had started laughing and hadn't stopped for the past 5 minutes. 3 different xenobiologists were trying to resign their positions via emergency quantum transmission. And somewhere in the back of the room, Security Chief Phoenix Blazer was desperately trying to burn all evidence of the tree costume incident, unaware that it had already been immortalized in human internet culture as space zoologist does a hide. And now, I said, watching the chaos slowly settle, we come to the most profound revelation of all. The real reason I've brought this research to your attention. The holoscreen displayed a new image of vast wildlife preserve on Earth. Humans aren't just predators who learned conservation. They're not just hunters who developed ethics. There's something entirely new in our understanding of evolutionary development. Dr. Aurora Nebulae had finally stopped emitting that high-pitched sound. Professor Quantum Stardust had even managed to uncurl one tentacle to take notes. You see, humans have evolved beyond the predator-prey relationship entirely. They've become something we never even considered possible. Ecosystem engineers. The screen showed various human conservation projects across Earth. They don't just exist within their planet's food web, they actively manage and maintain it. Technical Officer Nova Flash's final report appeared humans are currently running what they call rewilding projects across their planet. They're not just preserving ecosystems. They're rebuilding them. They're bringing species back from the brink of extinction. They're reintroducing predators to regions where they were previously eliminated. They're literally reconstructing entire food webs. But here's what makes this truly remarkable, I continued, bringing up our latest analysis. They're doing this not because they have to, but because they believe they should. These apex predators, these unstoppable hunters, have voluntarily taken on the role of planetary ecosystem guardians. The audience watched in stunned silence as I displayed footage of humans rehabilitating injured predators, the very species that had once competed with them for resources. Humanity's relationship with their ecosystem isn't just unique, it's revolutionary. They hunt to maintain balance. They protect the very creatures they could easily eliminate. They've transformed their predatory instincts into a force for preservation. Dr. Lumina Starweaver had finally stopped laughing and was now furiously revising her theories on evolutionary development. But that's impossible. No species would voluntarily limit its own advantages. Ah, but that's where you're wrong, I replied, clicking to the next slide. Humans don't see it as limiting their advantages. They see it as exercising their responsibility. They've developed something unprecedented: predatory stewardship. The screen showed human scientists releasing rehabilitated animals, marking specimens for study, and managing protected areas. They're not just acting as predators or conservationists. They're doing both simultaneously, maintaining a balance that defies our traditional understanding of ecosystem dynamics. Professor Zenith Moonshadow's gravity disk had stabilized enough for them to ask, but what does this mean for our understanding of intelligent species development? Everything I said, bringing up our new theoretical framework. We've been categorizing species as predators or prey, as hunters or hunted. Humans show us there's another possibility: the guardian predator. A species that maintains its hunting abilities but chooses to use them for ecosystem maintenance rather than pure predation. The amphitheater erupted in excited discussion. Several xenobiologists were already drafting research proposals. Someone in the upper tiers had started a betting pool on how many academic fields would need to be redefined. But wait, called out Professor Quantum Stardust, who had finally uncoiled all his tentacles. What about their observation of us? How does that fit into this pattern? Ah, I grinned, my mandibles clicking with amusement. That's the best part. The humans have already classified us in their scientific literature. Would you like to know what category they put us in? The audience leaned forward collectively, hover seats creaking. They've classified us as, and I quote, adolescent ecosystem observers, showing promising curiosity, but requiring significant guidance in basic observation techniques and proper camouflage selection. I paused as the implications sank in. In other words, they see us as students. The screen displayed the humans' assessment of our research methods, complete with helpful suggestions for improvement, and what they called constructive criticism. Security Chief Phoenix Blazer's tree costume incident had its own appendix. The humans haven't just invited us to collaborate with them, I continued. They've offered to mentor us. They want to teach us their methods of ecosystem management, their understanding of predator-prey relationships, and most importantly, their approach to conservation. Dr. Aurora Nebulae's crystalline form had taken on a rainbow hue of excitement. You mean? Yes, I confirmed. Earth is going to become the galaxy's first interstellar wildlife research training center. The humans have already started designing courses, though they do insist that the first lesson will be, and I quote, how not to hide behind a hot dog stand, basic camouflage for beginner xenobiologists. The laughter that swept through the amphitheater was different, this time not nervous or hysterical, but genuine and appreciative. Even Dr. Lumina Starweaver had to admit that her previous theories might need some revision. So, my esteemed colleagues, I said, preparing my final slides, we have a choice to make. We can continue our current methods, hiding in bushes and pretending our bright purple stealth suits are invisible. Or we can accept humanity's offer and learn from a species that has transformed predation into preservation, hunting into harmony, and observation into art. The screen showed one final image: a human researcher and an alien scientist working side by side to tag and release a rehabilitated wolf. The human was teaching proper tracking techniques. The alien was taking notes while trying not to hide behind a tree. The universe has offered us an unprecedented opportunity. We've discovered not just a new type of predator, but a new possibility for evolutionary development. Humans show us that being apex predators doesn't mean we must remain locked in eternal hunting patterns. We can evolve beyond pure predation while maintaining our connection to the ecosystem. I looked out at the audience, seeing the mix of excitement, apprehension, and curiosity on their faces. Yes, humans are the most terrifying hunters we've ever encountered. Yes, they can track, pursue, and capture practically any species on their planet. And yes, Security Chief Phoenix's tree costume will probably become a teaching example in their xenobiology courses. Phoenix's third indignant squawk of the day was met with affectionate laughter. But more importantly, humans show us that predation and preservation aren't mutually exclusive, that hunting and harmony can coexist. That being at the top of the food chain comes with responsibilities as well as privileges. The ambient lighting in the amphitheater had shifted to a warm, golden glow, reflecting the mood of hope and possibility that had replaced the earlier panic. So I concluded, who's ready to sign up for humanity's Xenobiology 101, Understanding Ecosystems Without Hiding in Obvious Places? Every appendage, tentacle, and crystalline structure in the amphitheater raised in volunteering. Well, except for Security Chief Phoenix's, she was too busy trying to prevent Technical Officer Nova Flash from submitting the tree costume footage to the human internet's greatest hits compilation. As the crowd buzzed with excitement and plans for future research, I couldn't help but click my mandibles in satisfaction. We had come to Earth expecting to study simple predator-prey relationships. Instead, we found teachers, guardians, and possibly the galaxy's most patient wildlife photography instructors. And somewhere on Earth, a group of human researchers was probably watching our conference through their own observation devices, taking notes, and preparing lesson plans for their newest batch of eager alien students. The universe, it seemed, had a sense of humor after all.